Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 29th January 2021. In this video, we'll be looking at these issues. Emphasizing self-reliance in science. This article is about the recent Science, Technology and Innovation Policy. This policy is the fifth such policy in our country. Now, if we go back into historic times, on 4th March 1958, we have had the first resolution stated on this particular day under the leadership of our first PM, Jawaharlal Nehru, about a resolution on science policy. After that, it was again revised in the second version was revised in 1983. The third one came up in 2003, and the fourth policy, which is in vogue right now, came in 2013. In the wake of the pandemic, our Prime Minister has given a call for Atmanirbharta or self reliance. Now, this self reliance is different from the kind of self reliance that was emphasized previously in various science policies, resolutions, etc., wherein the technological development of whatever was available with India at that particular point of time was supposed to be leveraged for utilizing our natural resources. But the kind of self reliance right now is about building capacities, even if it means partnering with various countries. So, this partnerships and globalized economy is the central point of our self reliance in this new science and technology policy as well. So, it comes up with a data driven and multi stakeholder driven science, technology, and innovation planning policy. The objective of the policy is to identify and address the strengths and weaknesses of the Indian STI system, that is the science, technology, and innovation system in our country, and make it globally competitive. Now, what do you mean by globally competitive? If you take the case of various countries like Japan in 1970s or China in early 2000s, it is their research and development which has propelled the economic growth. China's economic growth came from manufacturing and reverse engineering, but after a particular point of time, especially in the present times, it is heavily investing in the future through 5G technology. As much as 600 billion worth cash is being dumped into this research and development with respect to 5G technology and deployment of that technologies. So this shows that unless and until we focus on making a transition towards the demand of the future where technology is going to be the driving force, we cannot actually ensure that it impacts our economy in a positive way. So developing that capacity is very significant. Now, what are the challenges here? Firstly, the idea of science and technology and research in India is not taken seriously. Therefore, it reflects in our budgetary allocation. Zero point 0.5 to 0.7% of our GDP is allocated to R&D sector. The second problem is with respect to the quality. If you take a look at most of the scientific journals that are published in our country through various institutions, especially in the higher educational institutions that impart PhDs, most of the journals are peer reviewed, and the quality of journals and the standards is in tune with the requirements of the European journals which publish these papers, and they don't actually address the needs of our country. So this brings us to the aspect of quality, where Indian needs are to take the central prominence in our entire policy issues as well. The funds allocated should also meet the social objectives of our country. Except for a couple of organizations like CSIR, ISRO, which are at the apex level organizations, which are at the top end of our R&D, the other IITs and other institutions are also indulged in this mediocre quality of research. It is mainly again because of the policy design of peer reviews and ensuring that they get published in European journals, which is actually helping European journals and their economic model rather than serving our needs. And again, coming back, the reason for such a policy option is because we don't have significant budget allocations. Third one is the problem of access. The scientific literature is very limited and it is very expensive. So if a person who is studying in a rural level college wants to access through digital route, he does not get access to such high quality journals. So this causes a handicap on his ability to seek or at least educate himself about the prominent developments in the areas of his interest. So this brings us to the point of private partnership. Now, the private partnership is not a significant investment in our country because we don't have a strong framework for IPR, that is the intellectual property rights. There is no incentive for the private sector. Therefore, all these problems have amalgamated into one of the major handicaps of our country, that is not being a nation where innovation is respected. This is the anomaly that this particular policy wanted to correct with certain emphasis on quality of research, making access universal, and various other initiatives with this front. One of the major recommendation is to increase the importance of R&D in our educational institutions by more budgetary allocations. However, the major criticism of the entire issue here is, firstly, Indian R&D does not take into consideration the lower rungs of the ladder. That is, Indian society is highly stratified, and also there is gender discrimination. So these aspects are not addressed. There are no policy measures or recommendations to ensure that access is increased to lower castes as well as the women who are slipping out of this entire supply chain. We see very few women scientists in our ecosystem. The second aspect is with respect to infrastructure. The policy talks very vaguely about this infrastructure building and how to mobilize the resources. So that is the gist of this article. More and more such articles will be coming up. We will be covering more such criticisms and analysis in the further articles. The next article, titled Hunger Alarm, is taken from the Indian Express, and this is regarding the National Family Health Survey, which is brought out by the Ministry of Family and Health Welfare. It has come up with round 5. The data that came out right now is just phase 1 data. So you have to understand how this National Family Health Survey works. So this is a very large scale survey, and multiple rounds of surveys are conducted as representative samples across various states in our country. This started in 1992, and ever since 4 rounds of survey came out. This is the 5th survey. The last survey came out in 2015-2016. So this is a comprehensive database of this various parameters, and it provides the state as well as national information for the entire country on parameters of social development like fertility, infant and child mortality, practice of family planning, maternal and child healthcare, etc. So this is carried out as discussed by the Ministry of Family and Health Welfare along with International Institute for Population Sciences in Mumbai. This is the nodal agency for this activity. So in the first phase of results, one of the most alarming result is the increased rate of hunger in our country. Now hunger is characterized and manifested in various forms, which are also used by global level indices like Global Hunger Index. The problem in India is malnourishment. One is undernourishment and the other one is overnourishment, and also this overnourishment aspect has a element of undernourishment also. There is this concept of hidden hunger. Let me explain what these are in detail. So when you're talking about undernutrition, we are basically talking about lack of access to food. But when we're talking about obesity, it is overindulgence in certain amount of foods and underindulgence in certain amounts of food. For example, micronutrients and protein are not emphasized enough in obese kids. So there is this aspect of hidden hunger. On the other hand, there is an increase in stunting and wasting. Stunting means the height of the kid does not increase, and when we are talking about wasting, there is less physical growth or less muscle growth. And this is a phenomenon that is witnessed across several states, and at the same time there is also rise in obesity in women and children. This is a serious problem for our country because we are talking about a phase of demographic dividend. We don't want our population to have health problems when we are expected to reap the benefits of this demographic dividend. And the alarm that is raised because of this hunger issue is very serious across all the 17 states that have been surveyed. And this is worryingly even more severe in richer states like, say, Kerala, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, and also Himachal Pradesh. So the share of underweight and wasted children has gone up in majority of the states, which is a serious cause of concern. Another problem is the total fertility rate, which is nothing but the average number of children that would be born to a woman by the time she is ending her childbearing age. In 19 out of the 22 surveyed states, this total fertility rate is actually lower than the replacement level. So it means that a woman bore less than 2 children on average through her reproductive life. And India's population is actually stabilizing as per the TFR. So this is again a good news to an extent, but again it will have long-term consequences, like how China is witnessing a significant number of people in old age and they don't have a working age population. So this is the gist of this article.